Hi, welcome back. I'm Captain Kannan, and we are talking about certificates and documents that are required to be carried on board merchant ships, in particular the container ships, based on the MEPC circular that I've been talking, and then as well as the write-up, my own write-up that I did on a vessel on the certificates required as per conventions. So we finished Solus load line, and we almost finished. Yeah, I think we finished Marpol also. We talked about the annexes, 1 to 5 annexes. We finished. The last one was Annex 6. So the Annex 6 parts we covered the requirements for the control of emissions by saw emissions through exhaust gas. Where are the what are the components like oxides of nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, oxides of sulfur, then volatile organic compounds, and the emissions through the incinerator, and what measures are required to implement that. They all form one part. Then there was a requirement for energy efficiency on board vessels. We talked about. I correct myself because all these sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, volatile organic compounds are within the ambit of Annex 6. So that way, Marpol has been very clever, very, very, very beautifully. They covered this emissions in one part, and then they brought in, as per their initial strategy, to limit carbon emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, the air pollution due to carbon dioxide by the emissions from the main engine and other generators. And another part of the regulation detailing like requirements for the energy efficiency on board vessels. And we saw various measures that are implemented for energy efficiency on board. When we talk about energy efficiency, I mentioned that when we take care of the energy efficiency, we limit the CO2 gases as well as we save fuel also. So there are various measures. Well, the documents required we talked about, and to further clarify all those now. So what are all the primary thing is the SEAMS, shipboard energy efficiency management plan. It has got three parts. Currently, under part three, it's implemented. And then we have EEDI files, EEI requirements, EEDI requirements, EEXI requirements, and then we have onboard maintenance manual for the vessels which are fitted with power limiters, engine power limiters, and then what we have the CII plan, and then how to comply with CII requirements over the periods which are to come. That's again a manual which is there as forming part of same part three. So these are all certified documents which are on board. Again, to tell you, it's only as much as I experienced on board. I'm sharing it with you, but exact, correct, detailed exposure to all these things are easily available to everybody on board. They're all there on board. Yeah. So probably, if we take time, our off hours, and the resources on board are immense to familiarize with ourselves, and then of course we carry forward with all those things in the best way that is possible. So they brought in under the ambit of energy efficiency. That was very beautifully done by Marpol, I mean by IMO, very cleverly done. So that it's a big component that global warming, and we have to reduce that because it really affects the climate. Okay, so main component of that is CO2. So they set a goal to reduce CO2. Their eventual goal is to get rid of fossil fuels altogether. Even carriers such as LNG also come, they also emit carbon dioxide to some extent, but of course to a great lesser extent than when we burn fuel oils. Okay, so right now where we stand as seafarers, we are equipping ourselves with certificates and document our own competency certificates and STCW certificates to serve on LNG vessels. It's only practical. It's only to ourselves that we equip. We do all these courses. We keep abreast of all these so that when the time comes, there's going to be certainly the time coming Yeah, if not now, in 5 years or 10 years time, there's going to be no fossil fuel. So they could be through ammonia or biofuels, and then we are well prepared, and we are. And then also, it's very satisfying thing that we contribute to the world climate, world environment, so that greenhouse gases are altogether, they are reduced, and then they don't affect the global warming, and then mess up the climate. Yeah. Okay. So that's Annex 6, and then we are done with Annex 6. We've talked about the documents. We get on to the next convention in my write up. That is, which one is that? That one is the STCW. Okay, STCW, by now, all of us are aware that we need to be qualified to serve on board merchant ships as per IMO's STCW convention. Um, so we have, as officers, all of us have certificate of competencies, and we also have STCW short courses, mandatory courses which are required. We complete that. They're all recognized by the shipping ministry of the respective government. And they're all carried in one bunch. When we join a ship, there's a big folder that we carry and require the certificates like the main competency certificate, the STCW certificate, the medical certificate, the yellow fever book. They're all either taken out and put it into separate envelopes and kept under the safe custody of the master. Okay. STCW. So implementation of all these things, who monitors? Okay, company makes sure that all of us are employed on board, and then we are properly certified as per the convention. Also through various means, yeah, they have got these recruiting agencies. They all have to be audited also, that they are aware of the convention requirements and the certificate that are required to be with every seafarer. And they make sure that before we join, we are well equipped with that. Yeah. So, but on board control is okay. We check on board. This guy is come with properly equipped. We have a checklist for that, and we keep it under our safe custody. On and off, it is subjected to audits also, both internal as well as external audits. So, under what convention under what they inspect all this on ISPS as well as MLC convention. They go through the class surveyor who comes for the external audit. They check all these things that they are in order. Also, they are required by the port states whenever we call ports. Most of the things that we transmit through electronic means, but I think one odd port, like when we used to call Egypt, this guy comes, the agent comes, they want for port clearance, they want almost, they're not alone the certificate of competencies, they want all the STCW certificates of all the crew on board. So we need to be careful when we are sending and when we are receiving it back, because receiving part is always at the last minute. Yeah, cargo work is going to be completed, people are busy, and then you have to take delivery of this big chunk of certificate that guy brings. So we need to take our time, and then we check this, and then we make sure that it is all in order as we sent it out. Okay. So this closely relates to STCW requirements of the certificates and documents that one must have. Each seafarer must equip himself or herself. So this closely relates to some of the MLC requirement also. MLC has got this various sections, and one of the section talks about all the seafarers must be like officers and crew ratings have to be properly certified as per STCW convention. This is another requirement. Also, minimum safe manning document specifies minimum scale on board. We say we have 27 people on board, crew on board. Minimum safe manning document specifies only 14. So what about the rest 13? Yeah, we can be a little lenient. Absolutely not. So all have to be properly certified by STCW convention. All have to have the documents clearly issued by the authorities and kept under the safe custody on board. That's a requirement for all the flag states. So that's how STCW is enforced and made sure that it is complied with. And that's STCW convention. It's got rest hours also. Compliance to rest hours or covers are strictly as per STCW and MLC. So that's how interlinked all the conventions are when I told in the first instance. Yeah. So let's get on to MLC. MLC, as you know, it's through International Labour Organization. Yeah. Other conventions, STCW, MAPOL, load line, and SOLAS are of course through IMO, International Maritime Organization. So MLC is through International Labour Organization, and they okay. So people are aware, yeah. So those who have been sailing for long. So there used to be ITF people coming and checking various things, documents, if they are properly paid or not, crewman welfare is there or not, board or not, yeah. And so that is drastically reduced now. Why? Because of this MLC convention itself. The convention itself takes care of all the ship owners, strictly enforce this requirements on board. And what does it say? So, how did ILO react to this? And then they said, "Okay, let's have the convention and let's enforce this, like in a fleet in a worldwide manner, bringing in all the signatory countries under UN so, in agreement, and then enforce everywhere for all the merchant ships." So, how does it? What does it say as a core definition? What does it? What is it concerned about? Yeah. Okay. It has got this write up, and I verbatim I took it out from this their site, and I'm reading it out now. Every seafarer has the right to a safe and secure workplace that complies with safety standards. One. Two. Every seafarer has a right to decent working and living conditions on board ship. Two. Three. Every seafarer has a right to fair terms of employment. Right. And four, every seafarer has a right to health protection, medical care, welfare measures, and other forms of social protection. Yeah. And each member state shall ensure that the seafarers' employment and social welfare are fully implemented in accordance with the requirements of this convention. Period. Yeah. Okay. So that's a beautiful thing. And once enforced, as everybody knows, it has got 16 parts. So I have a copy of this. We can dwell a little bit on this, and then what are it as per operational way that we take care. So MLC certificates is the core MLC Maritime Labor Certificate. Itself is there on board as per the surveys that are carried out, for compliance to MLC convention requirements. The certificate issued by class on behalf of the flag state. The 16 components, the 16 sections of the MLC are, as everybody knows, minimum age. I just got one such document here. Medical certification. So everybody, we have to be medically fit when we go on board for the particular rank, particular position on board. Qualification of seafarers that we talked about, it's a two-way thing. That's how interlinked the conventions are. So from STCW they are qualified. So MLC convention, as per this part 3, it says very clearly that all officers and ratings on board Hong Kong ships shall comply with the provisions of the STCW convention. Hong Kong ships, why? Because I'm reading it out from DMLC part 1, which is issued by the flag state. One such DMLC copy that I have. Okay, so seafarers employment agreement, there are certain terms and conditions that it has to be very specific, detailing all the clauses. And then use of licensed or certified or regulated private recruitment and placement services. So there can be no trouble, no dubious people employing ships and then totally abandoning their responsibility. So no, it's also regulated. They have to be certified. They have to be audited. They must be aware of all these conventions, and they must comply with the requirements of seafarers getting on board. Before they get on board, they must make sure that everything is in place for them. Right. Then it talks about work, hours of work and rest. It is in detail. There are some finer points which is slightly different from STCW that we are all aware of. Then manning levels of the ship. I talked about the safe manning document. Yeah. Apart from the safe manning document, there are two things. Yeah. This part I'm reading it out from DMLC Part 1. DMLC Part 1 is by the flag state of the ship. Okay, so DMLC Part 1, the section 3, qualification of seafarer says all officers and ratings on board Hong Kong ships shall comply. So all officers means we have more officers and ratings compared to minimum safe manning document. So that means what does it mean? Minimum safe manning documents, officers and crew or the ratings are there. Is it sufficient to carry only their STCW rating? I mean certificates on board? No. Once we have signed on the ship, whoever signs on the ship for employment on board must have all the certificates, they must comply with the provisions of the STCW convention. That means they must be properly certified. They must have all the competency certificates as well as the short courses that are required per the rank. Yeah. So that's minimum safe manning they talk about. Yeah. Then accommodation rules, sometime back I talked about accommodation rules. See, this accommodation rules is something, they're very clear that it has to comply with certain standards, and there has to be provisions for the crew welfare, and even they talk about crew internet also. Ship owners shall ensure that frequent inspections are carried out. That we do, yeah. They're not exceeding 7 days. We do that. It's very clearly done on board all the vessels, yeah. And recreation facilities that are set out to be mentioned also in the onboard recreation facilities. Also, they talk about, yeah, TV, and then live on board. And what else it says? In addition to the requirements relevant to the section, reading materials to be provided, television. Seafarers shall have reasonable access to shore telephone communication, email, and internet facilities where applicable. Yeah, so almost, yeah, that's become the norm now. We get internet services, not so much as like we have it ashore, but still good enough for us to be in touch with our loved ones. Uh, so that's complied with. And then we have food and catering. Yeah, another important aspect of the welfare on board that I talked about in the preamble that ILO mentioned in the first paragraph that I talked about. Health, safety, and accident prevention. That's why we have so it directly links to the ISM's core aspect of safety, health, safety, and environment protection. Yeah, so directly relates to that. That means it talks about safety committee, the members of the safety committee, the meetings and the minutes and the enforcement and the recommendations that are there, so on and so forth. Yeah. So onboard medical care. Everybody is entitled to onboard medical care as well as medical care ashore. That's very clearly mentioned in MLC. Okay, then onboard complaint procedures also there. So that has to be free, fair, and it is boxes provided for dropping our complaints or our suggestions into the box, and that has to be taken into consideration whenever we do the inspection or whenever we do the meeting of the safety committee or management committee. We need to open it and then discuss that and then implement it, bring it forward to the concerned person for enacting that. Okay, the payment of wages is another important thing that it has to be done clearly, yeah, and then it has to be done monthly, and then remittances have to be sent out without any liability to the crew. All those things. By now, it is all well said. Then these two sections were added not so long ago: financial security for repatriation and financial security relating to ship owner's liability in case of injury to the sea staff. So these are insurance documents. These again the documents that are carried on board. So the insurance documents are as per Regulation 25 and then Regulation 42 of MLC Convention. So these are two such documents that ship owners take insurance against. What against one is that financial security must be enforced in respect of a ship to ensure that any seafarer employed to work on board, provided with the assistance of seafarer, is abandoned. When the seafarer is abandoned, yeah. So that he should not be just left. Okay, it's all yours. You find your way out. No, that is not possible. So again, there's another one for injury that is happening on board. The financial security for that. The treatment of seafarers, the compensation for the seafarers, etc. Okay. So that is MLC convention, MLC certificates. What are all the certificates that are required to be carried on board for that, or like maritime labor certificate itself after the audit? So as I mentioned, MLC, ISM, and ISPS. For some reason, I've seen on some vessels they are classed by they are under a different class than the core SC solar certificates. Yeah, safety construction, safety equipment, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I think that's just for a convenience only of the ship owner. Anyhow, it's all ship owner's choice. So they do the audits and they issue the certificates. So the documents are the main certificate. Then you have maritime labor declaration of maritime labor compliance part one, DMLC part one. DMLC part one is enumeration of all these 16 clauses as required by that particular flag state of that vessel. Yeah, in detail they mention. Yeah, this is the requirement, and that particular mentioned vessel should comply with all these requirements. DMLC Part 1 is issued by the flag state to that particular vessel. DMLC Part 2 is there. Part 2 enumerates the same clauses, yeah, issued by the company, endorsed by the flag state, I mean the class on behalf of the flag state. It says all the measures that are mentioned in DMLC Part 1, how they are dealt with in that particular ship. Yeah, by way of SMS manual. Is a manual, MLC manual prepared by the company, and then all the clauses are mentioned, how it is enforced on board. So this is a prime one that based on which the audits are conducted and enforced, and they are very good. So as I mentioned, these are there on board, and these detailed very well. So for one such example, I talked about crew accommodation. Yeah. So how detailed and how thorough they are in implementing the facilities that have to be there for the crew living quarters. How many clauses are there? And to read a few. So what is that? Verification that the material used for the construction of bulkheads, yeah, the fireproof of that. Proper lighting and sufficient drainage provided. Recreational accommodation, recreational and catering facilities are located. Yeah, these are all the checklists. It's a huge crew accommodation record of crew accommodation for that particular ship checklist. So it's a good guidance. It's a good document that we always take for. Refer to when we go for inspections also. Yeah, because nothing of that, like a simple thing we may consider, like it looks like insignificant. No, the table which is there in a crew cabin, the table lamp, or the location of the rack where you keep the books and sort of things, and then all those things, they're all very clearly specified in this record of crew accommodation, that they have to be there and they have to be well maintained. Yeah, so that's very clear. And the last part is about the fresh water and the medical facilities that have to be provided on board. Yeah, and confirmation that the ship is equipped with medical supplies, including medicine chest and equipment. Yeah, so that comes under record of approved ship crew accommodation, again under the MLC. And this is an auditable item. As I mentioned in a few sessions back, that when we get the gym equipment and all, they have to be we have to be very careful. We cannot just be placing it everywhere, because they are associated with people using the gym equipment, and then we have to have the monitoring. They have to be on a UMS vessel. They have to be under the they have to be they have engineers call along panel has to be provided in a place where the gym equipments are also kept. So we don't just we comply with this requirement, and what is constructed, what is delivered with it's got huge meaning, and then we should be very careful in providing extra stuff on board. Yeah, right, great. So that is MLC. Then what is the next one on the MLC? We're done with MLC, and then we have tonnage convention. Tonnage measurements are done as per tonnage convention of IMO, and then gross tonnage and net tonnage is allotted to a particular vessel. We have international tonnage certificate, and then associated country certificates. I mean, for transiting through Suez Canal, they charge as per the tonnage, the transit dues. So Suez Canal, Panama Canal, they got their own tonnage certificates, calculations, and things like that. These are issued by the class on behalf of the flag state, international tonnage certificate. Okay, then that comes under tonnage convention. So I'm not going into the convention per se, and that's well easily available to everybody for their reference. Okay, then anti-fouling system convention. Yeah, okay. So this is in a big way it has come. So we have to have anti-fouling international certificate for. Let's go back to the certificates and documents. Yeah, that's the one. So we are done with they also the MEPC circular that I mentioned above, that the certificates and documents that are required to be carried. All these, when I say this MLC and other things, they also are clearly mentioned over here. Let's go back to STCW. So certificates of masters, officers, and rating. So that is one part of the MEPC circular, what are to be carried, and the record of daily hours of rest. So these are all kept clearly as per our work and rest of our record on board, and it is all either electronically maintained or hard copies are maintained. Copies are given to the crew, and then we comply with this record of daily hours of rest, both as per STCW as well as IMO, MLC ILO standards. Okay. Now, then the International Anti-Fouling System Certificate. So, anti-fouling system is what? What is anti-fouling system? Convention controls prohibition of organotin, that is tin-based, compounds which act as biocides in anti-fouling paints. So they kill they affect the marine environment. So they are harmful, and then so tin-based items, we make sure that it is not applied in any part of the underwater hull or the hull which is exposed to below the water level. So that certificate, and then what is that? Declaration of anti-fouling system is also issued to ships, signed by the owner or owner's authorized agents. Such a declaration shall be accompanied by appropriate documentation containing the what are the paint specs and all those things to make sure that it doesn't have organotin. So example I mentioned in my write-up is that tributylene, generally called TBT compound. So these are tin compounds which are toxic and hence harmful. The ships should not use TBT or other tin-based organotin compounds in their anti-fouling systems. So long ago they were there. Long ago when we were cadets and all, we just there are a lot of general cargo ships. The cadets' job is like when we go alongside, put the fellow in a raft. It's a rickety raft, and then he goes with a long scraper and scrape the bloody barnacles of the ship's hull. So at that time, did they have a did they have a hull coating without tin? I don't know. Maybe they had, but mostly they did not, because there are a lot of this one growth, and then a lot of compounds which are there. So probably they also improved on the technology to develop the paint, and then they came out with this one, and then so anti-fouling system is in place. Anti-fouling system is it's a document. International anti-fouling system certificate is to be issued, survey by the flag state, that is the class society on behalf of the flag state, taking into consideration the hull painting that is given, so as a declaration of the anti-fouling system. Okay, so that means we need to have the certificates in order. The paint specs, with the last paint specs which are applied, that are also kept along with this in the dry dock report that is given. One can find in that, as well as any touch-up that needs to be done. One need to be very careful. We should use right. So the next convention in my list is, well, we are progressing fast because they are all individual topics and they are not into a magnitude of like Solus or Marco. Okay. So next one is the bunker convention. Before I go to the bunker convention, we are nearing the end of this session. So once again, I thank you for joining me, and then safe sailing to my colleagues at sea, and then happy holidays. We'll catch up with other conventions, and I think we are nearing an end of this long trek. So we'll finish with this certificates and documents pretty soon. And also, I need to talk about the flag states requirement on this. So certificates and documents that are required to be carried as per SOLAS or MODPOL, as per IMO, is one set that comes under the MEPC circular. All the flag states adopt this, and as well as on top of it, additional certificates and documents that are required to be carried on board ships as per the flag state is also there. So that's a separate list which comes after this. We'll talk about it later. I have, for example, the ones that need to be carried on board Hong Kong flag vessels. Okay, safe sailing and happy holidays. See you soon.